Closing arguments getting underway in the plotting parents murder trial. Let's go in together live.
Good morning. The judge just instructed you on the law. As I said in my opening statement, you're the trier of fact. You judge the credibility of all the witnesses that you heard last week. And now, when you go back and retire and go back in the jury room and deliberate, you'll apply the evidence to the law and make your decision. And as the judge has said, you can take the instructions, should take the instructions back into the jury room with you. Now, Mr. Spence is charged with capital murder. We have to prove all the elements of capital murder beyond a reasonable doubt. The first element is that on or about November 30th of 2022 in Tippah County, Mississippi, while Jeff Spence was engaged in the commission of robbery, Jeff Spence unlawfully, with or without deliberate design, killed Kirby Carpenter, a human being. Those are the elements. November 30th of 2022. Kirby's last words to Caitlin were at 6:37 p.m. on November 30th of 2022. He was traveling past Gino's, which is a tire store in Boonville. Kirby is never heard from again. You can review the text messages. They're entered as an exhibit, and you will see that there are no outgoing texts or calls from Kirby's phone. Scott Watson, who was the deputy coroner that day, and Dr. Erin Robinson, who didn't testify, but her report and the death certificate were admitted into evidence, declared that the date of death was November 30th of 2022. We can see this from the death certificate, which is right here, admitted into evidence. And highlighted there is 11/30/2022 in the right-hand corner is the date of death. Tippah County, Mississippi. His body, no question, was found at 6071 County Road 600 in Tippah County. That's Kirby Carpenter's home. Now, let's talk about robbery. Robbery is just what you would think it would be. It's taking someone else's property by violence using a gun in this case. A person is in the commission of robbery even if the robbery occurs after the killing. And the judge read you an instruction that tells you that as long as the state has proved that this is a continuing chain of events, the murder and the robbery, we don't have to prove which one occurred first. So even if Jeff robbed Kirby after killing him, he is still in the commission of a robbery. Now, let's talk about the property. You heard testimony early on in the trial from Bart Adams. Bart Adams is an attorney in Ripley, Mississippi. He knew Kirby for about 12 to 15 years, knew him, did some legal work for him, and he knew him as an acquaintance. He did business with him. He traded gold, silver, and collectible coins with Kirby. He also testified that in his dealings with him, Kirby always carried a satchel. I think Bart called it a man purse. And in that, I'm going to call it a satchel. In that satchel was cash and business documents. Now, he also always carried a pistol with him. The gun and the satchel were never recovered. They weren't on Kirby's person, they weren't in Kirby's house, and they weren't in Kirby's truck that was locked in the driveway with the groceries he had purchased at the Kroger in Corinth on 11/30/2022. 22 Magnum shells were found on Kirby's person at the crime scene when the body was discovered on December 2nd of 22, but no gun. Where'd the gun go? Something he always carried. Now, Let's talk about the personal property, including the business documents. Where were they found? We got to look to the Chilhowie, Virginia branch of the Bank of America. These pictures have been entered into evidence, and the actual evidence you can take back into the jury room and examine. Now you'll see some, what Mr. Hill calls the commercially packaged items that you can buy on Royal Street in New Orleans, but you also see a lot of loose coins. These are all items that were part of Kirby's business. North Mississippi Gold, Silver, and Coin Exchange. Also contained in the Chilhowie branch were miscellaneous papers. I'll have more to say about that in a little bit. Jeff killed Kirby with or without deliberate design. Deliberate design. Now, what is deliberate design? Deliberate design means we don't have to prove that Jeff Spence intended on killing him. He killed him, but we don't have to prove intent. Jeff Spence shot Kirby in the right shoulder and the chest with a shotgun. Kirby's death was caused by a shotgun blast. Where do we get that information? From the death certificate. And the pictures that you saw that were presented in trial that showed the wounds Kirby Carpenter's neck and chest area, right shoulder. The doctor, the medical examiner, ruled this a homicide, and the cause of death, which is in the right paragraph, gunshot wound, gunshot to right shoulder and chest area. Now, there's a lot of evidence in this case. We're going to take it one at a time because once you put all the pieces together, everything points to Jeff Spence. The timeline. In my opening argument, I suggested to you that the timeline is critical in this case. Kirby's timeline, Caitlin's timeline, and Jeff Spence's timeline. Again, Kirby's last words to Caitlin, to anyone, was at 6:37 p.m. in the form of a text message when he's passing Geno's. Again, here's the text message. You can see it's 6:37 p.m. on November 30th of 2022. Where are you? Geno's. Now, if you recall, Caitlin's testimony was that on the night of, actually on the 29th, Jeff Spence suggested to her that she go out with Bailey Reeves, her friend, on the night of 11/30/2022. That didn't work out because Bailey had her baby, her husband was home, whatever. They did not get together. But Jeff suggested they get together. Yeah, that's just why. Because he did what he had to do. We know where Caitlin was. We know Caitlin was at Walmart in Boonville. And we know she went to the parking lot. And how do we know that? Because we've got video evidence that's been entered into the evidence showing her at the Walmart parking lot, and she stays there until 7:52 p.m. Her testimony was that after she left, after breastfeeding, she went to pick up Chinese food and then headed home. 15 to 20 minutes to Kirby's house, where she lived. So that puts her, even if she's speedy picking up her Chinese food, that puts her home about 8:15 p.m. Kirby was murdered approximately 7 p.m. Now, Jeff and Karen left Mississippi after being in Mississippi for an extended period of time to, quote, help with the baby on 11/29/22, one day before the murder. 19 hours. I want you to remember that number. You heard the officers from Virginia testify that it was about an 8-hour drive. Caitlin said it was 10. Say it was 10. you've got an hour time difference. So when you're traveling to Virginia, you pick up an hour. When you're coming back to Mississippi, you lose an hour. 19 hours. So if the Spences left Mississippi 1 to 2 p.m., giving them a 10-hour drive, adding an hour for the time change, that puts them home in Saltville, Virginia about midnight on 11/29/22. Kirby's killed at 7 o'clock p.m. on the 30th. That's a 19-hour gap. Plenty of time to get something to eat, to take a shower, to fill up with gas, get a good night's sleep, and drive all the way back to Mississippi. And again, Kirby was found at 12:30 on December 2nd of 2022. When did the Spences say they come back? They came back on the 3rd, and they stayed at the funeral on the 17th, and then they left on the 20th. 19 hours. The bank box. The first bank box that was opened by Jeff Spence was opened on December 2nd of 2022. Guess what? The same day Kirby's body was found. There's a safe deposit box lease opened by Jeff Spence, co-owner Karen Spence. But what's significant is the box entry log. When does he enter that box? On the same day he opens it. At what time? 11:40. That's Eastern Standard Time, which is 10:40 Mississippi time. That's almost 2 hours before Kirby's body was discovered. If they didn't know he was dead, why they're opening up the bank box? And Mr. Hill made a big deal that, hey, you open up a bank box, nothing unusual about going into that bank box. But if you look at the Saltville branch documents, that box was opened up on December 12th of 2022, and the contents are in evidence. He doesn't enter that box until June of 2023. Why does he go into that box? On the day that he opened it, 2 hours before Kirby's body was discovered. Well, on December 4th of 2023, pursuant search warrants obtained by Virginia law enforcement.
You're going to see more of the closing arguments coming up next here on Court TV Live. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
This is Court TV Live. I'm Matt Johnson, your host for this hour, in for Ted Rowlands. Thanks for being with us. We begin this hour in the state of Mississippi, where the fate of Jeffrey Spence will soon be in the hands of his jury. Testimony wrapped up on Friday with the state calling Spence's youngest daughter, who testified her mom, she considered them to be like Bonnie and Clyde. Spence is accused of fatally shooting his other daughter's boyfriend by the name of Kirby Carpenter. The defense decided not to call any witnesses at trial, but say the victim dealt drugs and always carried a large amount of cash, making him the prime target for a robbery gone wrong. Let's get you back into that courtroom now for more of the closing arguments. This by the state.
What do they find in the Chill Alley branch box? Number 11. This. And more importantly, more incriminating, not commercially valuable, is a check to David Barnes. Kirby M. Carpenter, 6071 County Road, 600 Boonville, Mississippi, $90. How'd that get there? Miscellaneous paperwork that Chris McAllister testified to. First is a simple envelope that you get from a bank when you withdraw money. Where's that from? People's Bank, Ripley, Mississippi. Bands that are used to band money together. People's Bank. People's Bank. You gotta ask yourself, where's the money? It's in his pocket. And the receipts. Here's a receipt from Panthers Den in Dumas, Mississippi. Kirby's MasterCard. And here's some receipts that Chris McAllister testified that he verified that they were from Kirby Carpenter's account. Now, what do these documents do in that box? Because Jeff Spence grabbed Kirby's satchel and left. Testimony is that his satchel contains business papers, documents, and cash. All that's found in the Chill Alley box. The confession. Caitlin Spence testified that in December of 2022, he had gone back to Mississippi on the 30th and delivered a package that he implied were narcotics, pills. Placed him in the shed, I believe, underneath a bucket. So here he's confessing to going back to Mississippi on the 30th. And then we had the waterfall conversation that Caitlin testified happened between April and June of 2023. After she's reading all these social media posts, she's gone through counseling, and she just comes out flat out and asks Jeff Spence, did you kill Kirby? What did he say? No, I didn't kill him. What are you talking about? The less you know, the better. Don't look the gift horse in the mouth. Down south, we would say that as don't thump a free melon. If you say anything, you'll lose, and no, let you kill me. I did what I had to do. And Caitlin Spence testified that this was a confession. Now, Mr. Hill has made a lot of the purported enemies that Kirby had throughout his life. Drug dealers in Memphis, business transactions gone wrong. Out of all the people, Caitlin could have said, "Hey, look, he was dealing drugs with Joe Blow in Memphis. He killed him." Who does she point her finger at? The guy that confessed to her father, his own daughter. The shotgun. Carolyn Aguayo, Caitlin's sister, Jeff Spence's other daughter, younger daughter. First grade teacher, wife, mother. Has no reason, nothing to gain from her testimony. She doesn't want to be anywhere around Jeff. She doesn't want him to know where they live. She doesn't want him to know how many children she has. And he made the statement to her while watching TV that if he had to kill someone, he'd use a shotgun. Jeff knew it was easier to get away with using a shotgun because if you only fire one shot, the casing's not going to eject. Chris McAllister testified that it was a single shot from a shotgun. Now, significantly, again pursuant to a search warrant in December of 2023, Smith County law enforcement found a hidden, muddy, fully loaded shotgun under Jeff's bed. Pictures are in evidence. The shotgun was wrapped in a man's jacket. Muddy at the end of the barrel. Also important is the ammunition that was contained in the shotgun. He wrapped it 6 times, 6 shells ejected. To submit to you, the testimony was that the red shells are double-aught buckshot. Chris McAllister gave me his opinion as a coroner that Kirby was shot with buckshot. Jeff's phone. Caitlin testified that she tried to call Jeff on November 30th of 2022. And she couldn't get it. And she asked him about this. And he said, oh, my battery was broken. All day? What was recovered in A1 storage was labeled a Faraday bag. You heard testimony what a Faraday bag is used for. Put your phone in there, nothing's coming in, nothing's going out. Easy way to hide your phone. Carolyn's testimony. What did she say about phones? She said that when Jeff had to cross state lines, he would give his phone to his wife so he couldn't be detected. You see a pattern here? Jeff's MO, modus operandi, how he gets things done. The shotgun. Kill with a shotgun, hidden underneath his bed. Why do you hide the shotgun underneath your bed? Wrapped in a jacket. Because you're trying to hide the murder weapon. Again, what the comment he made to Carol, if I was going to kill somebody, I'd kill him with a shotgun. The phone. Carolyn testified, yes, the phone was to Karen so they couldn't detect him going across state lines. His phone, he's gone dark the day of 11/30/42. The security cameras. Now you heard Carolyn testify that things had gone south with her parents. They had basically evicted him off their property. He came back to get his stuff out of the garage, and they watched him on the camera walk behind the shed, and then the cameras go blind. They go back to check it out. Camera's been cut. Recorded. Why did he do that? Chris McAllister testified that Kirby Carpenter's security system, the cameras, had been disabled. Now, Mr. Hill said, oh, he didn't have access to the house. Yes, he did. Caitlin testified that she had told her parents where the spare key was located. So he didn't have to break into the house. There was no sign of forced entry because he didn't have to. He knew where the key was. He lived there for several months. The aggression. I wrote this down. During Carolyn's testimony, when they met at McDonald's to see if they could straighten things out, these are Carolyn's exact words. I saw an anger and a violence in his eyes that I had never seen before. I saw an anger and a violence in his eyes that I had never seen before. That's Carolyn's testimony. Someone has nothing to gain about being here. Caitlin testified at the waterfall, her father had never talked to her like that. He was angry. JDC, Jeff doesn't care. A text from November 5th of 2021, about a year before Kirby's murder. Jeff says, "You hire the talent. The older I get, the less life in prison is a deterrent." Jeff doesn't care. The older I get, the less life in prison is a deterrent. That's a text in response to Caitlin's question, tired of a job, hey, what other work can I do? And he says, Assassin's Inc. That full text chain is entered into evidence. Kirby's house. Again, Jeff knew about the spare key, knew where it was. Jeff disabled the cameras. Because if he doesn't disable the cameras, all this is for naught. Jeff shot Kirby, dragged and tried to hide his body. Picture of Kirby's house in Federal 600 in Chippewa County. Picture of the carport area. Looks like there'd been some kind of scuffle. And I say that because behind that white garbage can were found Kirby's house keys. Mud on Kirby's pants from being drugged. And that's where he ended up. Underneath the curtain, secured by a toolbox from a pickup truck. Now, Jeff's alibi. The court has instructed you that's the state's burden, and we accept that burden, to prove that Jeff Spence was in Mississippi. And I just went through the litany of evidence that shows that he was in Mississippi. But listen, so we've got that burden, but let's look at the alibi. The alibi is based on one text, supposedly from Karen Spence to Caitlin. One text. About to cook hamburgers. Dad worked really hard today. The hounds are on the porch. That message. That brings the obvious question. Where was Karen? This is an unverified, unsworn, self-serving text message. Anybody can grab a phone, go into another room saying, hey, I'm having fun in Alaska. Why didn't Karen Spence come into this courtroom, be sworn in by the court reporter, sit down and testify under oath? I sent that text message. I was in Virginia when it was sent, and my husband, Jeff Spence, was with me. Where was she? I don't know where she was, but she wasn't here. Now, if you're accused of capital murder, and you're claiming you were somewhere else, and you see the number of just miscellaneous documents that are in all these bank boxes. It's almost like you hoarded receipts and things. Where are the receipts? Where's the receipt from the gas station where he filled up with gas in Saltville, Virginia on November 30th of 2022? Where's the receipt saying he bought a Coke and some naps?
Pardon me.
Prosecutor there laying out their case in chief. What do you think about this one? Hit us up on social media. Coming up after the break, more on the plotting parents murder trial playing out there in Mississippi. This is Court TV Live.
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
4 dead students.
None of it seemed to make any sense.
He was evil.
What devastation.
All I can do is scream.
victim to verdict with Ted Rollins. New episodes Saturday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific.
Only on Court TV.
We'll get you back to Mississippi in just a moment, but first, a quick look at some of the other cases that we're tracking right here on this busy Monday at Court TV. In Tennessee, testimony resumes today for the man accused of fatally shooting the mother of his child and then throwing their newborn baby in the Mississippi River. In the state of Florida, it's day 2 of testimony in the scattered remains murder trial for Daniel Stearns. He's the Army veteran accused of fatally shooting his girlfriend and then burning her remains, but claims that he shot in self-defense. Plus, in Utah, we are standing by as the suspect in the Charlie Kirk assassination is due back in court next hour for a status hearing. We'll take you there live as soon as it happens. But for now, let's head back to the state of Mississippi for more of the plotting parents murder trial for Jeff Spence. Let's get you back for the rest of the state's closing argument.
Because he wasn't insulted. Why isn't there someone come in here and testify and say, yeah, Jeff and I were together on 11/30/22, Saltville. We sat on the porch, had a coke. Because he wasn't insulted. This alibi, this unsworn, unverified, self-serving text message is not an alibi. What they're claiming to be an alibi. You've used 28 minutes. Thank you. But it's unsubstantiated. Why wasn't Karen here? Maybe she was tired of staying strong for the family. To continue covering up for Jeff. I don't know. All we know is she wasn't here. And you've got to ask yourself a question. How does a man with the financial troubles, with no continuing or employment whatsoever, how does he accumulate all this cash? If you look at the inventory sheets on the 2 bank boxes, he's got $62,000. That's just in the county cash. That doesn't count the money that was wrapped in aluminum foil when he was arrested on November 30th of 2023, 1 year to the day Kirby died. I believe that was about $10,000. He claims that he deals in gold, silver, and valuable coins. Is there any dealer that came in here and said, yeah, I'll trade with you? And finally, the 3 people, his immediate family, who should be the most important people to him, his 2 daughters, both testified against him, and his wife didn't testify. That's got to say something. Confessed to Caitlin, Carolyn, again, a first grade teacher, wife, mother, credible, no reason to come in here and lie. They broke ties with, I think she called them Bonnie and Clyde. Scared of her. Don't want him to know where she lives, where her family is, how many kids she has. Jeff Spence had the motive, that's greed. Jeff Spence had the opportunity in 19 hours. Jeff Spence took this man away from Maddie Jane, his mother, his sisters, Casey and Wendy, and most importantly, his 2 children, Towns and an elder. Jeff doesn't care. Prison's not a deterrent to him. A deterrent to what? A deterrent to murder. He's guilty. Find him guilty. Thank you.